Okay, so now we have our descriptive stats done for our chapter 4. So now let's go ahead and get a nice little graph, or in our case, a figure, after, of course, you've explained everything here. So what I would do for my next figure, whatever figure that would be, for my graph, we can't call it a graph, figure, whatever. So this figure is going to be I'm going to call it a bar graph, comparing mean times performing behaviors. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump back to my sheets to make this graph. So really all you need to do is I'm going to go ahead, and the easiest way is to type in a separate column my behaviors. And then right next to it, I'm going to put the average. So 9.5, 4.3, 8.2, and 21.1. So just that simple. And then I'm going to highlight these two columns. I'm going to insert a chart. And a really nice, very easy chart to do would be a bar graph. So it comes up with a pie chart, but if I hit this arrow, there's a nice pie chart or bar chart. So it's got my sleeping, escaping, and tapping and eating. You can clearly say this one is a little bigger. And you can change this by doing chart title and axis titles, behaviors. You got it. Behaviors of gliders. And you can do the axes, horizontal axis title, and this would be minutes, behavior, observe, whatever you want to put it. And then our vertical axis would be number of minutes, or something like that. And the nice thing, when you have this this graph, you can just click the three dots. You can copy your chart, and then I'll jump over here, and I'll paste my chart. You can link it. Linking it just basically means if you change one thing on the chart, it'll update on your doc. Now here's something that we really have some issues with. So you notice that the title is on one page, but the graph is on the next one. So what I'll do is I want to go ahead and not orphan that. So I'm going to go ahead and take it down here. Tab in. So it's lined up with the other ones. Now you want to also make sure your chart is tabbed in. The easiest way sometimes is just to shrink it. And then you can just hit the tab button and it'll tab it in. So there's my graph figure. And then of course I'm going to say figure whatever showed the sample means, blah, 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 blah. Just explain what each of the bars means. You can say that eating is the biggest one. We cannot show that it's significantly more than the other. All we can really say is that it's more as a sample mean. And then our testing will see if it is significantly different or not. So now we have our chart. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my next table. So this is going to be table 2 or whatever it is. And my table 2 is going to be my ANOVA results. And, when you're doing the transitions from the graph to the results, you can kind of talk about what's coming, but you're going to explain what's in the table when you get there. Now, you don't want to copy and paste from sheets. You want to make your own tables. So I'm going to insert a table, and here's how easy a ANOVA test result can be. Well, first, I'll clean this up. Actually, I don't want it that big in it either. So I'm going to insert a table. I only need 2 columns for this one. So, and I'm going to shrink it because I don't like the way a table looks when it's really big, but there's not really that much stuff going in it. So I'm going to, there we go. So I'm going to have the variable and I'm going to have the value. So I'm going to have my level of significance, which in this case I said was 0.05. You can have your p-value, which is going to be 0.00. Let's go back and see what it was. Move this out of the way. 0.0015, which is this value right here. Don't go a million decimals either. A couple is fine. And then my decision is going to be to reject the null. And I'm rejecting the null because the p is less than the alpha. And you want to explain all that when you do your explanation. You know, table 2 shows results of the ANOVA. So go ahead and make sure that you're explaining what a level of significance is, you're explaining what a p-value is, you're explaining when the p-value is smaller than alpha, you reject the null, just so the reader kind of knows what all these mean. Now finally for ours, we also will have to have a Chaffee test because these were unequal. So we got this done, we got this done. We'll have to have a Chaffee test because these are unequal sample sizes. So after the ANOVA, what I would say before I move on is I would say, since the ANOVA rejected, we're going to run a follow-up test to try to figure out which means are different. Okay, so now we're going to go to table 3, and this is going to be my Chaffee results. Now you can do this lots of different ways, but I'm going to show you how I make my table. So I am going to do a table. I'm just going to put a bunch of columns and rows in it. So the first thing I'm going to put is what is my Chaffee critical value. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of the means I compared. So I have sleeping versus, let me look at what the second one was. Sleeping versus escaping. And it doesn't really matter, just to make it simple, I'm just going to go in order. So sleeping versus escaping, and sleeping versus attacking. So what we're really doing is we're just putting all the pairs of means here in this list. And you can use the codes if you wanted to, or you can write them out. I always think it looks better if you write it out. And so that's all the ones, and then I'll do escaping versus attacking. And if you need a new column, you can just tab escaping versus eating. And then we have attacking versus eating. Now, right away I can see that my table is onto the next page. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put it all, I'm just going to take it all down there. Get rid of this guy here. And so I'm going to push this in. I want to make sure that they all appear. Perfect. And so I have my Chaffee critical value. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more row here. I'm going to insert a row below. And so then I'm going to put value here. And so this is going to be my F Chaffee stat. And then I'm going to have decision on the pair. So all my F Chaffee stats will come from the chart. My critical value will come from the chart. So there's only one critical value. So what sometimes I've seen people do is this little box here we really don't need. So I'm going to turn the borders of that white. See just that little part. So then you can see that it makes a table where you only have that critical value. So the critical value for the Chaffee test, if I go over here, critical value was 8.97. So I'll put that here in my box here. And then the Chaffee stats are all right here in that chart. So as sleeping versus escaping. So if I go over here, sleeping is 1 and escaping is 2. So 1 versus 2 is 1.40 if I round. So their value is 1.40. It's red, so I'd fail to reject. And I just do this for each of them. So sleeping versus attacking. So that's 1 versus 3. 1 versus 3 is 0.10. So 0.10, that's going to be a fail to reject. And I just filled my whole chart in. And then finally, same thing as before. We're going to say table 3 showed the results And then like we talked about informally before, kind of talk about what it shows. So in this case, it said, remember we wrote this earlier over here, significantly more time eating versus attacking or escaping, but nothing really else could be said. So you want to write that and then kind of convey that in your chapter 4. Finally, you'll conclude it. Kind of just say what you did, say what's coming in chapter 5, and you've got a great chapter 4. The last thing I'll mention, just remember, if you have multiple ANOVA tests, you want to kind of go through the same process over and over again. We'll do the descriptive statistics, and then the table, and then the ANOVA, and then the Scheffé/Tuckey results if you need it. And then you keep going through that as many ANOVA tests as you do. So chapter 4 certainly can get pretty long if you have multiple tests. So hopefully these videos were somewhat helpful. Please let me know, Ms. Cunningham, know if you have questions, how we can help you.